Hello everyone and welcome to this video. I want to talk about the artist's roadmap to a solid career. The art journey is definitely a shadowy one. It's hard to understand and there's a lot of areas that you can get trapped in or feel lost in. It's not an easy path to walk on. And we want to give you guys a roadmap to clarify some things so you can understand what steps you should take so you can flourish in your career. This is the basic outline. I'm going to give you guys an introduction, some things that we believe is the truth here at Design. I'll go over some things you should know about fundamentals, about design and storytelling. I'll talk about the possible paths that you can take as an artist. Every paths are going to be unique for each individual, so take that into consideration. I'll talk about passive skills and active skills, as well as how to receive or give feedback, and then a recommendation to courses. So this is what we believe here at Design. Art for the entertainment industry is the intersection of all known art forms. It borrows tools from different fields that work together to create memorable experiences. So think of the art for the entertainment industry like a whirlpool that pulls elements from different fields, such as industrial design, automotive design, UI UX. So instead of just, let's say you're studying vehicles, instead of studying that in an isolated area, you can look at the automotive design industry and pull elements from that so you can learn more about it instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. Here's another thing we believe. Art for the entertainment is built on three main pillars: the fundamentals, design, and storytelling. Foundation is always going to be the main priority, it comes first. Then you have design, which is in the middle, and storytelling is on top and it's last, okay? Growth is going to be forever, so you'll never stop learning, remember that. Foundation requires time, because you'll always have to study the foundations throughout your whole lifetime. Design requires effort because it's hard to understand. And storytelling requires patience because it usually comes later on in your career, and once you get really good at your foundations as well as design, your priority will shift more towards storytelling, because in terms of drawing it's going to be more effortless, but in terms of the story you want to tell, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to convey that to people, and you have to have patience for that. And in the end, what you guys require and what I think you deserve is the truth. So the first part I'm going to be covering here is the fundamentals. For the more advanced artists, you will know about these things already, but I'm going to have to cover this first for the ones that are starting out, right? So the fundamentals are the basis of all arts. Without them, an artwork can fall apart no matter how well designed it is or how good a story it tries to tell. Remember that we are visual artists, so even if you have a background in storytelling, let's say you have a background in writing, we are essentially telling stories visually, and if you don't understand the fundamentals, people who are looking at your art will not be able to enjoy your artwork, and they won't be able to enjoy the story if they're pulled from that immersive experience because the fundamentals do not hold together. So there are a few things that you should study and know about. The first thing we can discuss here is drawing, and the things you should learn is such as points, lines, line weight, construction, perspective, gesture, shape and form, and so on. For painting, you should study things such as brushwork, brush economy, underpainting, value, color, and so on. You have another thing here, which is art history, which is, I think, a bit slept upon. Like, people tend to forget art history a little bit. And there's so much you can learn from, because we are standing on the shoulders of giants. You have 14th to 16th centuries. Look at, say, the Flemish artists within that period. Very interesting flat compositional style, very detailed. They're very interesting. 17th to 19th centuries, you have, say, the Impressionists, who have a beautiful way of conveying light through the vibration of color. You have 20th to 21st centuries. Let's look at someone specific like Sargent. A lot of people know about Sargent and they love studying him, but then you have less known ones. Let's take someone more modern like Joseph Albers, who studied color very closely And I think you could pick something new by studying someone kind of unusual like Joseph Albers. The next part here, we have composition. You have open and closed composition. You have other types of compositions as well. Then you also have rule of thirds, which utilizes the golden ratio to make the person focus on the focal point. Then you have other things within composition, right? So we're just picking out a few things here. You have anatomy, which is very important if you want to get into characters. So you have body structure and construction, which is very important. You need to know about the head and understand how to make portraits. You should know about the muscular system. And then you have life drawing studies, which is very useful as well. And then another thing, which I also think is a bit slept upon or forgotten, especially early on in a person's career, which is analysis. This can be a make or break. Make because you're actually applying analysis, or break because you never use it. Okay, a very important thing is theory versus application. A lot of people, they do the theory part, but they don't do the application. Another thing is breakdowns of drawings and paintings. Okay, looking at what you've made and trying to break down what you've done for yourself, or trying to break down what other people have made. Then you have understanding of techniques and tools. Like, how do you actually use traditional mediums, or how do you actually understand how to use Photoshop, things like that. And now we're going to get into design. This is going to be more interesting for people who are intermediate to advanced area here. Design principles solve visual problems effectively, bringing coherence and visual harmony in artworks. This is interesting. You have the design foundations, which is going to be applicable to anyone who are getting into the more intermediate to advanced territory. It doesn't matter if you are doing environments or if you're doing characters or props, you should know the design foundations at that point. So that would be things such as the 12 principles of design, shape language, flow, big, medium and small, big versus small, iteration systems, ratios, etc. Some of you may know this, but there are others who will not know about these things. Even other professionals may not know about the design foundations, but they use it intuitively. We have a course on this, by the way, if you want to know more about it. Then we have advanced design principles. So these are things such as adding and subtracting, adjustments in design, cluster systems, set dressing, designing without references, morphology, etc. Again, we have a course on this. Then we have specific design. Okay, this is design for things such as for characters, which might not be applicable for environments, right? Because environments also have specific design systems, and the same thing goes for props, the same thing goes for fantasy as a genre, as well as things such as for sci-fi, right? And so on and so forth. Now, most people's path when they're interested in a field is going to look a little bit like this. They're going to go through the fundamentals, and they're going to go through the design foundations and have an understanding of that, and they're going to be interested in a specific field, let's say characters, and get really good at it. Once you're about 90 to 95% proficient within that field, you can consider yourself a specialist. Now, most people tend to stay within their field and thrive off of just that, but if you want to grow and learn even more and have more options, you can actually start to generalize into other areas. Now, a generalist is good at multiple areas, and it's not just like maybe one or two things, it can be several things, but you're gonna have to start somewhere, of course. So let's say you want to move from characters to props. What's neat is that you don't have to learn from scratch anymore. There are some things about characters that overlap with props. Not 100%, but there are some things that will overlap, which will make generalizing after specializing much easier, as opposed to if you have just jumped into generalizing. This is what we recommend here at Design, that you specialize first, then generalize, okay? Now, a beginner generalist is about 60% proficient. An experienced generalist is going to be about 80 to 90% proficient in many areas. And now I'm going to get into storytelling, which is going to be interesting. So visual storytelling is the use of images, graphics, and other visual media to convey a narrative or message towards the audience. So on the right that we're seeing here is a very common story type. There are many different story types, but this is one of the most common ones, the hero's journey. You will see this type of template in many different stories, but some of you may recognize it in something like The Matrix or Lord of the Rings, and I'm going to go through this with you. So the hero starts out in the ordinary world, where they are just an ordinary person, so they're not a hero yet, but they're going to start with their departure, and there's going to be some sort of call to adventure. And generally, the hero, or the ordinary person in this case, is going to refuse that call because they're comfortable living in the ordinary world. But maybe they decide to take on that call anyways because they change their mind, or they meet someone who pushes them over the edge, which could be something like a mentor figure, and they're going to help them cross the threshold. And as they're moving along the story, they're going through something called the initiation, which is going to permanently change them along the way. This is a growth for the character. They're going to go through tests, they're going to make allies, and they're also going to create enemies. At one point in the story, they're going to approach something called the inmost cave. This is the unknown, or the darkest point in the story of the hero. And this is probably the most painful part for the hero. And since they're going to become the hero, they're going to go through that ordeal, fight whatever is in that cave, and the cave is just a metaphor for the pain that they're going through. And they're going to win and get some sort of reward. And now the hero is at the final stage of the initiation, and they're going to go back home to the ordinary world. The hero now is permanently changed. They have become resurrected. They're no longer an ordinary person, they're now the hero. And the hero is going to return back home with their reward, or in this case, what we can call the elixir. The elixir can be literal, like a physical object. It can actually be a potion, but it can also be a symbolism for something else. It can be knowledge, it can be riches, it can be anything else. And they will return home to the ordinary world to share those riches with the other ordinary people in that world. In the next part here, we're going to actually talk about character archetypes. So we've already talked a little bit about the hero's journey, but just to go through it here, it's a protagonist who embarks on a journey, faces challenges, and often undergoes personal growth. Then you have the mentor, okay? A wise and experienced figure who guides and supports the hero, offering advice and knowledge. And then lastly here, we have the shadow, the antagonist or villain who opposes the hero and represents the dark aspects of the story. Now remember, there are many different character archetypes, but these are like just 3 that I picked out here to give as an example for you guys. And if you want to know more, we have a PDF for this called Dynamic Characters. You can check it out in our website. Then we're also going to talk about some visual storytelling tools. And this is just like some examples that we're going to give you. So we have compositional elements, framing, perspective, and formats. Then you have props and other elements such as weathering, textures, and different design types. You have shapes. As artists, remember that we have to convey stories through visuals alone, and you have to actually know how to convey some sort of story through shapes. You can use aggressive shape language or soft shape language to kind of convey a sense of story through the character or through the environment. Then you have something like lighting, which is probably the most popular, especially among illustrators. They will use light and shadow as well as color to tell a sort of story or give us some sort of mood in the scene that they're giving us. Alright, so in this slide, I'm going to be talking about the general artist's career path. And this is going to look different for each person, but this is just like a general representation of what that may look like. And we're going to take into consideration the foundations, design, and storytelling that we've went through. And we're going to talk about it in that type of chronological order, right? In terms of what's important, right? Remember, foundation comes first, then design, then storytelling. But they do overlap as you progress in your career path. And I'm going to go through it here with you. So year 0 is when you start to take art seriously. That's when a timeline starts. And I recommend spending anywhere between 6 to 8 hours or more, okay, minimum, for spending time on art seriously. Any less than that, you might not get as much out of it. We want to spend meaningful time to learn as much as you can, and you need to commit time to it. So as you go through, let's say 3 years, career path is typically established. You kind of know where you want to go. You probably are more interested in learning about, let's say, creature design, and you want to do more about creatures. At this point, you probably start to pick up more about design. And as you progress over time, your priority in design is going to increase. Foundation is going to be important too, but you're going to spend more time with design. In year 6, you might experiment more with storytelling, and you also might take on jobs. And this is where you'll start to really see significant growth because of experiences that you gain over time and you being challenged. And over time, let's say around year 10, you're fully a professional. Okay, and at this point, you are practicing, foundation, design, and storytelling, probably not fully equally, but you're starting to put more effort into these like other areas. And as you progress, your priorities shift from maybe focusing more on design and less on foundation. And as time progresses even further, you focus more on storytelling and less on design and less on foundation, right? Now I'm going to talk about the 2 different career paths that people will take on. This is just like a general overview, but you have concept art and illustration because they're very different. They have different purposes and use different tools. So concept art is about ideating and problem solving in a short amount of time, and it works more with drawing. And you can think of concept art as the backstage build of a product. The public doesn't see concept art generally. It's meant to be shared within the team being the game developers and the other artists within the team that will continue designing and creating 3D and animation and so on, right? Then you have illustration. So it's about highly polished results that can take more time and works more with painting. And this is the public face of a product. This is used in marketing, it's used in loading screens, it's used in cover art, it's used for key art and so on, right? The public is going to be seeing this all the time. This is the pretty stuff right here. And this is what the career path diagrams are going to look like for concept art and illustration. So they're going to be different, right? So that's why I mentioned earlier that the general artist career path is going to look different for everybody else, okay? Because it was just generalizing. So for concept art, you're going to obviously start with foundation, which is what everybody's going to have to do anyways. But your priority on design is going to be much higher, okay? You're still going to be studying about foundation, but design is going to take up a large space, and you're still eventually going to get into storytelling as you progress as well. But for illustration, maybe foundation is going to be prioritized for a much longer time, and so is storytelling, and design is much less prioritized, because as an illustrator, being a good storyteller is very important because you tend to create scenes and you're going to utilize composition and lighting to create stories as opposed to just designing things. Again, these are general representations. Now I'm going to talk about active skills, which we've already kind of gone through here, but I'm just going to go through it. There are skills related to art itself that you are actively using in your career, preparing for a job, progressing in your career, and so on. So these would be things such as fundamentals, design, and storytelling. But then you also have passive skills. So these are abilities that gives you benefits automatically without you having to actively do anything. And these are things that you gain over time through patience and experience. And these can be different experiences that you have, and then you gain these skills over time passively. And these can be things such as observation, adaptability, open-mindedness to feedback, consistency, curiosity, and many more. Okay. If you actually want to know more about these things, I recommend checking out the Art Career PDF. It's in our website. Now, in this next part, I want to give some advice for students as well as professionals, but this is mostly applicable to students that are asking for feedback, and this is also for people who are giving feedback. So when it comes to giving or asking for feedback, you should remember a few things. When it comes to foundations and part of design, there's going to be more objective right and wrong things when it comes to applying fundamentals and design principles, especially design foundations. But then there are elements within design as well as storytelling itself where the feedback can become biased, okay? And that's because you have options where it comes to applying design and storytelling. So a result can be good if it serves the IP or bad if it doesn't. So if you're going to ask for feedback, I recommend that you stay within this area, okay? Generally, it's very useful to ask for feedback within foundations. That's going to be pretty safe. If you're asking for this feedback on design, you're going to get a little bit more subjective feedback involved. There's going to be some objective feedback, but there's going to be some subjectivity as well. Just keep that in mind because there are going to be some different preferences. And for storytelling, that one's a lot more tricky as well. That one can also be much more biased. And there are some things, some do's and don'ts that you should take into consideration when it comes to asking for feedback. So do not ask for general feedback, and that's not really going to serve you as a student, okay? So asking, let's say, what do you think? When you write a post and you upload it, let's say on an art community, or let's say you're uploading it on our Discord server, you just show a work in progress image and you write, hey guys, what do you think of this piece of artwork? I'm open to any type of feedback. That can lead to subjectivity and personal preference from the person that is trying to help you out. And that can lead to resentment and frustration on your part. What I do recommend is ask for specific feedback. That can be things like, what can I improve in terms of perspective or values or colors or anything else that you are currently studying or trying to get better at. This keeps things more objective. And this is another thing, do detach yourself from your work when asking for feedback, to be open to understanding what can be improved. I think that most people know about this to a certain degree, but it's just a good reminder. You are not your artwork. Your value is not based on just your artwork, okay? If you fail in that piece of artwork, that's completely fine. And let's say you post a piece of artwork and you're asking for feedback and you get a lot of feedback, don't be bummed out about it. Just take it, try to learn as much as you can from it, and apply what you have received from the feedback and test it out and see if maybe the results are better next time. It helps with your mental health much more, trust me. And here I just want to give some recommendations in terms of courses you guys can take. Now remember, you can actually download this PDF, this presentation that I've shared with you on our website, and we have these courses here available. And this is the courses that we have on foundation, courses specifically on design, and then we have courses on storytelling as well. And I recommend checking it out. Alright, so that is the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, remember to like and comment down below. We also have a Discord community, so the link is going to be in the description down below. With that being said, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week. I'll catch you around next time.